The lunch rush at Harbor Blue, one of downtown Chicago's fanciest restaurants, was just starting to die down. The place still buzzed with the quiet chatter of business folks in expensive suits, the gentle clink of silverware against fine china, and the soft piano music playing in the background. At a corner table next to the tall windows overlooking the busy street sat Olivia Reed. At 45, she carried herself with a quiet confidence that came from years of building her tech company from the ground up. Her dark curly hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she wore a deep blue blazer that matched the lake visible in the distance. Olivia checked her watch. She had exactly 47 minutes before her next meeting with some very important investors. Just enough time to enjoy a proper meal instead of the protein bars she usually grabbed between appointments. She'd been looking forward to this all morning, a moment of peace in her otherwise packed day. The morning had been rough. 3 back-to-back meetings, 2 urgent phone calls, and an email from her biggest client threatening to pull out if they couldn't meet the new deadline. Her shoulders felt tight with stress. But Olivia had learned long ago that showing weakness wasn't an option for someone in her position, especially not for a black woman who had fought her way to the top of a mostly white, mostly male industry. "Your Chilean sea base, ma'am," the waiter said, placing a steaming plate in front of her. The fish was perfectly seared, sitting on a bed of colorful vegetables and drizzled with a sauce that smelled like lemon and herbs. Olivia smiled at the waiter, a tall young man with kind eyes. "Thank you." Finally, a moment to herself. She closed her eyes briefly and took a deep breath. The smell of the food made her stomach growl. She hadn't eaten since 6 a.m., just a quick bowl of oatmeal before rushing to the office. The restaurant around her hummed with quiet conversation. 2 tables away, an older couple was sharing a bottle of wine. Across the room, a group of businessmen laughed loudly at something one of them had said. Through the windows, Olivia could see people hurrying down the sidewalk, bundled up against the chilly autumn air. She reached for her fork, ready to dig into the perfectly plated meal. Her mouth watered as she cut into the tender fish. "Don't eat that." The shout cut through the gentle murmur of the restaurant like a knife. Olivia's hand froze mid-air, fork halfway to her mouth. Around her, conversations stopped. Glasses paused on their way to lips. Everyone turned to look. A young waitress was rushing toward Olivia's table, moving so quickly she nearly collided with another server. She couldn't have been more than 20 years old, with her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail and a face free of makeup. Unlike the other staff with their perfect posture and practiced smiles, this girl looked genuinely alarmed, her eyes wide with panic. "Please," the waitress said, lowering her voice but still speaking urgently as she reached Olivia's table. "Please, don't eat that fish." The restaurant had gone completely silent. Every person in the place was watching them now. Olivia could feel their eyes on her back, could imagine the whispers that would start any second. Was this some kind of joke? A prank for social media? The manager appeared as if from nowhere, his face turning a deep shade of red. "Lily, what do you think you're doing?" he hissed, grabbing the young waitress by the elbow. Lily pulled away from him, her eyes never leaving Olivia's face. There was something in those eyes, something desperate and genuine that made Olivia hesitate. "I'm so sorry about this disruption," the manager said to Olivia, his voice smooth as butter now. "Please, enjoy your meal. I'll make sure this doesn't happen again." But the young waitress, Lily, stood her ground. Her hands were shaking and Olivia noticed that her knuckles had gone white from gripping the edge of the table. "Ma'am," Lily said, her voice trembling slightly but determined. "I could lose my job for this, I probably will, but I can't let you eat that fish." The manager tried again to pull Lily away. "That's enough. Back to the kitchen now." Olivia raised her hand, silencing the manager with a simple gesture. 20 years as a CEO had taught her how to command attention without raising her voice. "I'd like to hear what she has to say," Olivia said calmly, placing her fork back on the table. The young waitress swallowed hard. Olivia noticed a small birthmark near her right eye, the way her uniform was slightly too big for her slender frame, the small worn spot on her shoes. Details that told a story of someone who needed this job. "I was in the kitchen," Lily started, speaking quickly as if afraid she'd lose her nerve. I heard the chef arguing with his assistant. The power went out in the walk-in fridge last night. Some of the seafood went bad. The assistant chef wanted to throw it all out to be safe, but she glanced nervously at the manager whose face had gone from red to a sickly white. But what? Olivia prompted gently. But the head chef said they couldn't afford to waste that much expensive fish. He said to just use it quickly and no one would notice. Lily took a deep breath. My mom almost died from food poisoning last year. She was in the hospital for a week. I couldn't let you eat that. I couldn't let anyone eat that. Olivia looked down at her plate. The beautiful meal that had seemed so appetizing just moments ago now looked dangerous, a trap disguised as a treat. She pushed it slightly away from her. The manager started apologizing profusely, promising a new meal, offering free dessert, his words tumbling over each other in panic. But Olivia wasn't listening to him anymore. She was watching the young waitress who stood tall despite the trembling in her hands, who had risked everything to do what she thought was right. Something about that struck a chord with Olivia. How many times in her own career had she been afraid to speak up? How many times had she seen something wrong but stayed quiet because rocking the boat seemed too dangerous? The hushed whispers had started around them. Phones were out. People taking pictures, probably sharing on social media already. Olivia could imagine the headlines. Scene at elite Chicago restaurant, or health scare at Harbor Blue. But none of that mattered right now. What mattered was that this young woman had done something brave, something Olivia respected deeply. "What's your name?" Olivia asked, ignoring the still apologizing manager. "Lily," the waitress answered, her voice steadier now. "Lily Chen." Olivia nodded slowly, a plan already forming in her mind. "Well, Lily Chen," she said, reaching for her purse, "I think you and I need to have a longer talk." The manager's office at Harbor Blue was small and cluttered, nothing like the elegant dining room where customers enjoyed their expensive meals. Olivia sat in a worn leather chair across from the desk, her posture perfect despite the uncomfortable seat. The young waitress, Lily, perched nervously on the edge of another chair, hands folded tightly in her lap. Between them stood the restaurant manager, Mr. Patterson, a balding man with sweat beading at his temples. He kept dabbing at his forehead with a handkerchief as he tried to smooth over the situation. "Ms. Reed, I cannot apologize enough for this misunderstanding," he said, shooting a glare at Lily. "I assure you that Harbor Blue maintains the highest standards of food safety. This young lady is new and clearly confused about what she heard." Olivia turned her gaze to Lily, ignoring the manager completely. "Tell me exactly what you heard in the kitchen," she said gently. "Take your time." Lily took a deep breath, twisting, the edge of her apron between her fingers. "I was getting fresh napkins from the storage room next to the kitchen," she began. "The door was cracked open, and I heard Chef Thomas arguing with Bobby, his assistant." She glanced up at Olivia, then back down at her hands. Bobby was saying they needed to throw out all the seafood because the power had gone out overnight, and the walk-in fridge temperature had gotten too high for several hours. But Chef Thomas said they couldn't afford to waste thousands of dollars worth of fish, especially the Chilean sea bass that had just been delivered yesterday. Mr. Patterson tried to interrupt, but Olivia silenced him with a raised hand, her eyes never leaving Lily's face. "Bobby said it wasn't worth the risk," Lily continued, gaining confidence as she spoke. "He said he could smell something off about the fish, but Chef Thomas told him to just use extra lemon and herbs in the sauce to mask any slight odor, and to make sure it was well cooked." She looked up, her eyes meeting Olivia's directly. "He said no one would notice or get sick from just one meal." The room fell silent. Mr. Patterson's face had gone from red to white, and now it was turning a sickly shade of green. "And why did this concern you so much that you were willing to risk your job?" Olivia asked, though she already knew part of the answer. Lily's eyes filled with tears. "My mom. She got food poisoning last year from bad fish. We thought it was just an upset stomach at first, but by that night she couldn't even keep water down. Her fever got so high and she was so dehydrated that she collapsed in our bathroom. Lily wiped quickly at her eyes. I found her there when I got home from my other job. She hit her head when she fell and there was blood everywhere. Her voice trailed off, and she swallowed hard before continuing. She spent 8 days in the hospital. The doctor said if I'd come home even an hour later, she might have. Lily couldn't finish the sentence. We don't have good insurance. The bills nearly made us lose our apartment. Olivia felt something shift inside her chest. She thought about her own mother, who had raised 3 kids on her own after Olivia's father left, who had worked 2 jobs to make sure they always had food on the table and a roof over their heads, who had taught Olivia that integrity mattered more than anything else. I believe you, Olivia said simply. The manager started sputtering excuses. Ms. Reed, you can't possibly take the word of an inexperienced waitress over. Actually, I can, Olivia cut him off. And I will. She pulled out her phone and began typing. I'm going to need the full name of your head chef and the owner of this restaurant. Mr. Patterson's face drained of all remaining color. Ms. Reed, please, this will ruin us. Harbor Blue has a perfect health inspection record. We've been serving Chicago's elite for 15 years. And now you're serving them spoiled fish, Olivia replied calmly. She turned to Lily. How many of these fish dishes have been served today? Lily thought for a moment. At least 20 during the lunch rush. The sea bass is today's special. Olivia's lips pressed into a thin line. She had built her company on 2 principles: innovation and integrity. This situation violated the second in the worst possible way. Mr. Patterson, you have 2 options. 1. I walk out of here right now and call the health department, and then I call every news outlet in Chicago. She paused, letting that sink. Or 2. You immediately stop serving any potentially contaminated food, call back every single customer who ordered seafood today, and warn them. That would be financial suicide, Mr. Patterson protested. Food poisoning could be actual suicide for some of your customers, Olivia countered. Elderly people, pregnant women, anyone with a compromised immune system. Are you really willing to risk their lives to save your profit margin? The question hung in the air between them. Through the small window in the office door, Olivia could see waiters moving back and forth, carrying plates of beautifully arranged food that might make people seriously ill. Mr. Patterson seemed to deflate before their eyes, sinking into his chair. My sister owns this place, he said quietly. She trusted me to run it while she's going through chemo. If this gets out... He looked up, his eyes pleading. Please, can we handle this quietly? Olivia considered this new information. She understood family obligation and responsibility. She also understood fear, but neither justified putting people in danger. Call them back, she said firmly. All of them. Now. And I want to see you pour bleach on every piece of seafood in that kitchen, so it can't be served to anyone else. Mr. Patterson nodded slowly, then picked up the phone on his desk. Olivia turned to Lily, who was watching the exchange with wide eyes. As for you, she said, her voice softening, I think you've had enough of the restaurant business for one day. Would you like to get some coffee with me? There's a place around the corner that makes an excellent latte. Lily blinked in surprise. But my shift isn't over until 5. I think Mr. Patterson can spare you for the rest of the day, Olivia said, with a pointed look at the manager, who quickly nodded his agreement. As they stood to leave, Lily hesitated. Why are you doing this? Why would you want to have coffee with me? Olivia smiled, the first real smile since this whole situation began. Because I have a tech company that employs over 200 people, and not one of them had the courage to do what you just did. That interests me. She handed Lily her business card. On the back, she had written her personal cell number. And because I think you and I have a lot to talk about. As they walked out of the office, leaving Mr. Patterson frantically dialing phone numbers, Lily looked down at the card in her hand. Tech Fusion, she read aloud. Olivia Reed, CEO. She looked up in astonishment. Wait, you're that Olivia Reed? The one who was on the cover of Business Weekly last month? Olivia laughed at the shock on the young woman's face. The very same. Now, how do you take your coffee? The coffee shop was warm and cozy with soft jazz playing in the background and the rich smell of freshly ground beans filling the air. Olivia and Lily sat at a small table by the window, two steaming mugs between them. Outside, the Chicago wind whipped fallen leaves into tiny tornadoes on the sidewalk. "So," Olivia said, taking a sip of her black coffee, "tell me about yourself." "Lily Chen. And not just the waitress part." Lily wrapped her hands around her mug of chai latte as if drawing warmth from it. "There's not much to tell," she said with a small shrug. "I'm 22. I work 2 jobs and take night classes at City College. I want to get a business degree eventually, but it's taking forever going part-time." "And your family?" Olivia asked gently, noticing how Lily's eyes darted away. "It's just me and my mom," Lily replied. "My dad left when I was 12. Mom works at a dry cleaner, but her hours got cut back after she was sick last year." She took a sip of her drink, leaving a tiny bit of foam on her upper lip, which she quickly wiped away. "We share a 1-bedroom apartment in Rogers Park. I sleep on the pull-out couch." Olivia nodded, thinking about her own childhood in a cramped apartment in Detroit, sharing a room with her 2 sisters. "And what were you studying before your mom got sick? What's your dream?" Something flickered in Lily's eyes, a spark that hadn't been there before. "Marketing and business analytics," she said, sitting up straighter. "I've always been good with numbers and patterns. I like figuring out why people make the choices they do." Olivia leaned forward, intrigued. "Give me an example." Lily hesitated, then set down her mug. "Well, at Harbor Blue, I noticed that when servers suggest the special at lunch, only about 1 in 10 customers orders it. But if we mention it's Chef Thomas's award-winning dish, that jumps to 4 in 10. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I've been keeping track in a little notebook. I've got all sorts of data like that." "You've been doing market research on your own, for fun?" Olivia asked, impressed. Lily blushed. "I guess it sounds weird when you put it like that." "Not weird. Exceptional." Olivia's phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it briefly, her assistant reminding her about the investor meeting, then silenced the phone and put it away. The investors could wait. This was more important. "Do you know what I was doing at your age?" Olivia asked. When Lily shook her head, she continued. "Working at a call center during the day and building a website at night that nobody believed in. Everyone told me my idea was stupid, that it would never work. But it did work," Lily said. "Tech fusion is huge now. You revolutionized how small businesses handle customer data." Olivia raised an eyebrow, surprised that Lily knew so much about her company. Lily blushed again. "I did a case study on tech fusion last semester. Your company was my choice for the assignment." She fidgeted with her napkin. "I got an A." Olivia laughed, genuinely delighted. "Well, I'm flattered, but the point I was trying to make is that success isn't about where you start. It's about seeing opportunities that others miss and having the courage to take them." She paused, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. "Like you did today in that restaurant. Do you know how rare that is? To stand up for what's right, even when it costs you?" Lily looked down at her hands. "I'm probably fired, aren't I? I really needed that job." "I would say probably is an understatement," Olivia replied with a wry smile. "But I have a proposition for you if you're interested." Before she could continue, the door of the coffee shop flew open with a bang, letting in a gust of cold air and a tall man in a pristine white chef's coat. His face was red with fury as he scanned the room, finally spotting Lily and marching toward their table. "You!" he shouted, pointing a finger at Lily, who shrank back in her chair. "You little snitch! Do you have any idea what you've done?" Heads turned throughout the cafe. The barista behind the counter looked up in alarm. "Chef Thomas, Lily began, but the man cut her off. "Patterson just poured bleach on $10,000 worth of perfectly good seafood because of your lies," he yelled, his voice bouncing off the walls of the small shop. "He's calling customers and telling them they might get sick. Do you know what that will do to our reputation? To my reputation?" Olivia stood up, placing herself between the enraged chef and Lily, Despite being several inches shorter than the man, she somehow seemed to look down at him. "I suggest you lower your voice," she said, her tone icy calm. "And step back." Chef Thomas blinked, momentarily thrown off by the authority in her voice, but quickly recovered. "And who are you? Her mother?" "No," Olivia replied. "I'm the customer whose life she probably saved today by stopping me from eating your spoiled fish. I'm also the CEO of Tech Fusion, a company with quite a large social media following and connections at every major news outlet in the city." She pulled out her phone. "Would you like me to make a few calls? I'm sure the health department would be very interested in what's been going on at Harbor Blue." The chef's face went from red to white. He took a step back. "You can't prove anything. Actually, I made a recording of our conversation with Mr. Patterson," Olivia replied coolly. It was a bluff, but the chef didn't know that. "Now, I think you were just leaving." Chef Thomas stood frozen for a moment, weighing his options. Then, with a final glare at Lily, he turned and stormed out, nearly knocking over a woman entering the shop. Olivia sat back down, outwardly calm though her heart was pounding. She wasn't usually one for confrontation, but something about seeing Lily threatened had awakened a fierce protectiveness she hadn't known she possessed. Lily stared at her with wide eyes. "Why did you do that? Stand up for me, I mean. You don't even know me." Olivia took a deep breath, centering herself. "Because someone once did the same for me when I needed it," she smiled faintly, remembering her first boss, Mrs. Wang, who had defended her against sexist comments from clients and taught her how to navigate a male-dominated industry. "And because I recognize something in you that reminds me of myself, at your age." She reached into her purse and pulled out a sleek leather planner. "Now, as I was saying before we were so rudely interrupted, I have a proposition for you." She flipped to a blank page and took out a pen. "Tech Fusion has an internship program. It's competitive. We usually only take students from top universities, but I happen to have some pull with the boss." Lily's mouth dropped open slightly. "You want me to apply for an internship at Tech Fusion?" "No," Olivia replied, writing something down in her planner. "I want to offer you one right now. 20 hours a week in our marketing analytics department. Paid, of course, and we'll work around your class schedule." She looked up. "If you're interested." Lily looked stunned. "But why?" "Because I stopped. You from eating bad fish, that doesn't qualify me to work at a tech company." "No," Olivia agreed. "But your quick thinking, your courage to speak up despite the consequences, and the fact that you've been conducting market research for fun while working 2 jobs and going to school, those things do qualify you." She slid the planner across the table where she had written down a starting salary that was more than Lily made at both her current jobs combined. Lily stared at the number, then back at Olivia. "This is crazy," she whispered. "Things like this don't happen in real life," Olivia laughed. "I used to think the same thing, but I've learned that sometimes the craziest moments lead to the best opportunities." She extended her hand across the table. "So, what do you say, Lily Chen? Are you ready for a change?" Lily hesitated only a moment before grasping Olivia's hand firmly. "Yes," she said, a smile spreading across her face. "Yes, I am." 3 weeks later, Lily stood in the gleaming lobby of the Tech Fusion building, clutching her new employee badge and trying not to look as overwhelmed as she felt. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of Chicago's skyline, and people in sharp business attire hurried past her with purpose, all seeming to know exactly where they were going and what they were doing. Lily felt completely out of place in her carefully chosen outfit. Black pants and a blue blouse she'd bought at a thrift store the day after Olivia had offered her the internship. She'd spent nearly an hour that morning trying to tame her hair into a professional-looking bun, but a few stubborn strands had already escaped. "Lily Chen?" A friendly voice broke through her thoughts. She turned to see a smiling woman with gray-streaked hair and bright red glasses approaching her. "I'm Beth, Olivia's executive assistant. She asked me to show you around before your orientation." Lily let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Nice to meet you." "I'm a little nervous," she admitted. Beth laughed. Everyone is on their first day. Come on, I'll give you the tour and some insider tips that HR won't tell you. Like which coffee machine makes the best lattes, and which one tastes like motor oil. As they walked through the building, Lily tried to take in everything at once. Unlike the stuffy corporate offices she'd imagined, Tech Fusion was bright and open, with colorful meeting rooms named after famous scientists and mathematicians. People worked at standing desks, gathered around whiteboards covered in diagrams, or talked in small groups in cozy lounge areas. "This is nothing like I expected," Lily said as they passed a room where someone was playing a guitar while a small group brainstormed ideas on a wall of sticky notes. "That's by design," Beth replied. Olivia believes that creativity doesn't thrive in cubicles. When she started the company, she was working out of her apartment with just 2 other people. Even though we've grown to over 200 employees, she's tried to keep that startup feeling. They took the elevator to the top floor, where the executive offices were located. Unlike the open layout of the lower floors, this level had more traditional offices around the perimeter, though the center remained an open collaborative space. "And this," Beth said, stopping at a corner office with glass walls, "is where the magic happens." Through the glass, Lily could see Olivia standing at a whiteboard, marker in hand, talking animatedly to a group of people seated around a conference table. She looked different here, more intense, completely in her element as she drew diagrams and gestured emphatically. "She's finishing up a strategy meeting," Beth explained. "They've been working on a new feature for small businesses that's launching next month." She checked her watch. "She should be done in about 5 minutes, and then she wants to see you before you head down to HR." Lily's stomach tightened with nervousness. "She does? I thought I was just doing the regular new employee orientation today." Beth smiled knowingly. "Olivia doesn't do anything the regular way. That's how she's built this company into what it is." She nodded toward the office. "Watch her in there. She's not just telling them what to do. She's drawing it out of them, making them part of the process. That's her gift." Inside the office, Olivia seemed to have reached a conclusion. She put down the marker, said something that made everyone laugh. And then the meeting was breaking up, people gathering their laptops and notebooks. As they filed out of the office, several of them glanced curiously at Lily. She felt her cheeks grow warm under their scrutiny. "You must be the famous Lily," said one man with thick glasses and a friendly smile. "Olivia told us how you saved her from certain doom." What?" Lily stammered, confused. The man laughed. "That's not how she phrased it, of course, but word gets around. I'm Andy, by the way, head of product development." Before Lily could respond, Olivia appeared at the door. "I see you've met the welcoming committee," she said with a smile. "Thanks for showing her around, Beth. Andy, don't you have somewhere to be?" Andy gave a mock salute. "On my way, boss. Nice to meet you, Lily. Looking forward to working with you." As the others dispersed, Olivia beckoned Lily into her office. Unlike the minimalist, intimidating executive suite Lily had imagined, Olivia's office was warmly cluttered with books, plants, and framed photos. A worn leather couch sat against one wall, and the large windows offered a panoramic view of Lake Michigan. "So," Olivia said, settling into her chair and motioning for Lily to sit opposite her. "How was your first impression?" "It's amazing," Lily admitted. "Nothing like I expected." "In a good way, I hope," Olivia replied. "I remember my first day working in a real office. I was terrified I'd do something wrong and get fired on the spot." That was exactly how Lily felt, but she was surprised to hear Olivia had ever felt the same way. "Did you do something wrong?" Olivia laughed. "I spilled coffee all over my boss's keyboard within the first hour. I was sure that was the end of my career." She leaned back in her chair. "But it wasn't, because making mistakes is part of learning, and smart leaders know that." She pulled a folder from a stack on her desk. "Which brings me to why I wanted to see you before your official orientation. I've been thinking about where you'd fit best in the company." Lily nodded, trying to look professional despite the butterflies in her stomach. "I'm ready to learn whatever's needed for the marketing analytics internship." "About that," Olivia said, tapping the folder thoughtfully. I'm actually thinking of something a bit different. She opened the folder and slid a document across the desk. Take a look at this and tell me what you think. Lily glanced down at the paper and blinked in surprise. It was a job description, not for an internship, but for a newly created position. Customer Experience Analyst. I don't understand, Lily said, scanning the description. The role involved gathering and analyzing data on how customers interacted, with TechFusion's products identifying pain points and suggesting improvements. This isn't an internship. No, it's not, Olivia agreed. It's a full-time position that I've been thinking about creating for a while. Someone who can look at our business the way you looked at those restaurant customers, seeing patterns, understanding behaviors, figuring out how to make things better. Lily shook her head, overwhelmed. But I don't have a degree. I don't have experience. There must be hundreds of qualified people who would want this job. Probably, Olivia said with a shrug. But they don't have what you have. That natural instinct, that ability to see what others miss. She leaned forward. Do you know what impressed me most that day at the restaurant? Not just that you spoke up, but that you had been quietly observing and analyzing everything around you all along. That's rare, Lily, and it's exactly what this company needs. Lily stared at the job description, her mind racing. But what about school? My classes? We'll work around your schedule, Olivia said promptly. Fewer hours during the semester, more during breaks. And TechFusion has a tuition assistance program for employees. You could finish your degree while working here, debt-free. It sounded too good to be true. Lily looked up, searching Olivia's face for any sign that this was some kind of joke or test. Why are you doing this for me? She asked finally. You barely know me. Olivia was quiet for a moment, her expression thoughtful. 20 years ago, I was a lot like you, she said finally. Working multiple jobs, trying to get through school, full of ideas but with no way to make them happen. Then one day I met someone who changed my life, a professor who saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. She connected me with my first real job in tech, mentored me, pushed me to think bigger. She gestured around the office. None of this would exist if she hadn't taken that chance on me. So maybe this is my way of paying it forward. Or maybe, she smiled, it's just good business sense to hire someone with your natural talents before one of our competitors snatches you up. Lily laughed despite herself. I doubt Google is beating down my door. Not yet, Olivia said with a wink, but they might be someday. She stood up. So, what do you say? Ready to change your life? The question hung in the air between them. Lily thought about her tiny apartment, her exhausting double shifts, her mother's worried face every time bills arrived in the mail. Then she thought about the possibilities this job represented. Not just money, but a chance to learn, to grow, to be part of something exciting. She stood up and extended her hand. Yes, she said firmly. I'm ready. Olivia's face broke into a wide smile as she shook Lily's hand. Excellent. Let's go tell HR they need to redo your paperwork. She led the way to the door, then paused, turning back to Lily with a more serious expression. Just promise me one thing. What's that? Lily asked. Someday when you're in my position, you'll remember this moment, and you'll find your own Lily Chen to give a chance to. Lily nodded, a lump forming in her throat. I promise. As they walked out of the office together, Lily couldn't help but think about how differently her day had turned out from what she'd expected. 3 weeks ago, she had been a waitress, living paycheck to paycheck. Now she was stepping into a whole new world, all because she had found the courage to shout 5 simple words, "Don't eat that." Sometimes, she reflected, the smallest actions could change everything. 2 years later, Lily stood at the front of TechFusion's largest conference room, clicking to the next slide in her presentation. The room was packed with employees from every department, and at the back, sitting quietly with a proud smile on her face, was Olivia. So as you can see from these user engagement metrics, Lily explained, pointing to a colorful graph, Our new app interface has increased customer satisfaction by 32% in just 3 months. She clicked to the next slide. But we still have room for improvement. Based on our latest survey data, I've identified these 5 areas where users are getting stuck. Lily moved through the rest of her presentation with confidence, answering questions thoughtfully and occasionally making jokes that got the whole room laughing. Gone was the nervous waitress from 2 years ago. In her place stood a poised young professional who knew her worth. When the presentation ended, people gathered around to congratulate her and ask follow-up questions. As the crowd thinned, Olivia made her way to the front of the room. "Impressive work," she said, giving Lily a quick hug. "The board is going to love these numbers." Lily beamed. "Thanks, I couldn't have done it without my team." She nodded toward the small group of analysts who had helped her collect and interpret the data. "They've been amazing." "That's because they have a good leader," Olivia replied. She glanced at her watch. "Speaking of which, we should probably head out if we want to make our reservation." 20 minutes later, they were seated at a quiet table in a small Italian restaurant a few blocks from the office. It had become their tradition to have lunch together once a month, a chance to talk about work, life, and everything in between. "So," Olivia said after they'd ordered, "big day next week, huh?" Lily nodded, twisting her napkin nervously. "Final presentation of my senior project and then graduation on Saturday. I can hardly believe it's finally happening." "I'll be there cheering the loudest," Olivia promised. "First college graduate in your family. That's a big deal." "Mom's already crying every time I mention it," Lily said with a laugh. "She's invited everyone we know. I think half of our apartment building is coming." The waiter arrived with their food, pasta for Lily, salad for Olivia, and for a few minutes, they ate in comfortable silence. "I've been meaning to ask," Olivia said eventually. "Have you thought more about that job offer from Silicon Solutions?" Lily nodded. The competing tech firm had reached out to her last month with an impressive offer. More money, a bigger title, a chance to build her own department from scratch. "I have," she said. "I'm turning it down." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure? It's a great opportunity." "It is," Lily agreed, "but I'm not done learning from you yet." She twirled pasta around her fork. "Besides, Tech Fusion is where I belong. This company gave me a chance when no one else would. I'm not ready to leave." Olivia smiled, clearly pleased but trying not to show it too much. "Well, I'm glad to hear it, especially because I have something I want to discuss with you." She reached into her bag and pulled out a manila folder. "A new position I'm thinking of creating." Lily laughed. "This feels familiar." "It should," Olivia said, sliding the folder across the table. "Except this time, I think you know exactly why you're getting it." Lily opened the folder and her eyes widened. The title on the job description read, "Director of User Experience." This would put me on the executive team," she said slowly, scanning the details. "Reporting directly to you." "It would," Olivia confirmed. "You'd be the youngest director in the company's history. But you've earned it, Lily. The work you've done in the past 2 years has transformed how we think about our products. The customer experience team you built is now one of our most valuable assets." Lily stared at the document, her mind racing. She thought about the terrified young woman she'd been on her first day at Tech Fusion. How sure she was that she didn't belong there, that someone would eventually realize she was a fraud and send her back to waiting tables. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "Say yes," Olivia replied simply. "Unless you need time to think about it." Lily shook her head. "No, I don't need time. Yes, absolutely yes." They clinked glasses in celebration, and as they continued their lunch, the conversation shifted to plans for the new role. Projects Lily wanted to tackle, changes she hoped to implement. As they were finishing dessert, tiramisu to share, Lily's phone buzzed with a notification. She glanced at it and her expression changed. "Everything okay?" Olivia asked. "It's a news alert," Lily said, looking up with wide eyes. "About Harbor Blue." She quickly pulled up the article and read aloud. "Popular Chicago restaurant Harbor Blue shut down permanently following multiple health code violations. She scanned the rest silently, then looked up. They found rodent infestations, improper food storage, and evidence that expired ingredients were being served to customers. The owner is facing criminal charges. Well, Olivia said after a moment, I can't say I'm surprised. A place that would serve spoiled fish to save money probably wasn't cutting corners just that one time. Lily nodded, staring at her phone. It says here the investigation started after multiple anonymous reports to the health department. She looked up at Olivia with a knowing smile. Anonymous, huh? Olivia shrugged innocently. Sometimes doing the right thing means making a phone call or two. She checked her watch. We should probably head back. I have a board meeting at 3. As they walked back to the office, the spring sunshine warm on their faces, Lily found herself thinking about that day 2 years ago, how close she'd come to staying silent, to letting fear win, how different her life would be now if she hadn't found the courage to speak up. You know, she said as they waited at a crosswalk, I never properly thanked you. For what? Olivia asked. For believing in me that day, for seeing something in me that I didn't even see in myself. Olivia smiled. I just gave you an opportunity, Lily. You're the one who ran with it. Later that evening, Lily sat at her desk in the small but comfortable apartment she now shared with her mother. The living room had been converted into a bedroom for her mom. No, more pull-out couch, and Lily had her own space for the first time in her life. On the wall above her desk hung her proudest possessions, her soon-to-be college diploma, still in its mailing tube, her first business cards from Tech Fusion, and a framed note from Olivia that simply read, Always speak up. Her phone buzzed, with a text from her mother. On my way home from work. Should I pick up dinner? Lily smiled and texted back, Already ordered. Got your favorite from that new Thai place. And I have news. She put down her phone and turned back to her computer, where she'd been working on notes for her first executive team meeting. At the top of the document, she'd written a quote that Olivia often used. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's feeling the fear and doing it anyway. 2 years ago, she'd been a scared waitress, terrified of losing her job, but even more terrified of what might happen if she stayed silent. Now she was about to become one of the youngest executives at one of Chicago's fastest-growing tech companies, all because she'd found the courage to shout, Don't eat that. Sometimes the smallest moments, the briefest decisions could change everything. Lily glanced at the framed note on her wall again and smiled. Speaking up had changed her life. And maybe someday, she'd be the one offering a chance to someone else who had the courage to do the right thing, even when it was hard. After all, she had made a promise, and Lily Chen always kept her promises.